Hey, what does it mean to imagine a world where functional training and nutrition is truly accessible for everyone? Hi, my name is Umu and I'm behind the Sports Intersection Project. It's a project about social justice in sports and movement through an intersectional lens. And today my guest here is Mara.
Hi, I'm Mara. I'm a former full-time CrossFit coach based in Berlin. Now I decided to go self-employed to reach those groups and be in service to those people who don't have the easiest access to fitness and nutrition.
This brings us to Sports Intersection Project, which is a project where I am exploring together with other people what it means to have movement as a tool of liberation. How can we talk about moving our bodies in a way that makes sense for us and in a way that empowers us without necessarily having to fit with ideals of society? But also, what does it mean to talk about accessibility to sport, accessibility to fitness, accessibility to nutrition, to education, to safety, everything really around the topic.
So functional training for me is a way of helping you feel stronger in your everyday life today. But I also think a lot of you and people in 20, 30, 50 years from now, because I wish to be an older and elderly person who's able to still get off their bed every morning and who still gets to carry groceries up the stairs. So that's what functional training means to me.
So, Mara, what do you think are the current barriers? Like, what are some reasons why people are maybe not showing up to gyms or feeling reluctant to go to such spaces?
I believe there are dozens of barriers. CrossFit used to promote themselves with like forging elite fitness. So a lot of people just don't feel fit enough. If you Google CrossFit, it's a little bit like Google symptoms. You feel like, oh my God, I cannot do that yet. So even though it's always called like CrossFit is for everyone and everyone can start, in fact, a lot of people just don't dare to go to a functional CrossFit gym.
So how is that different from also people who just want to go to the gym just to work out?
I believe the access to fitness and nutrition, but that's a different topic, is just limited. We don't really learn about that. Often sports is organized in clubs, and we do sports in school, but I know more people who are like still to be traumatized of experience of sports in school, you know, being the only one within a group of 30 people who weren't able to execute the task or climb up the rope or, you know, do the thing that they were asked, because it's just like there's barely any how do I do that? How do we scale it down to get there? So since these are our first memories and experiences with sports, it's like 50% of people who succeed and excel, who then will be very, very willing to do sports, and the other 50% are like, oh, I'm not a sporty person, I'm not going to a club and play a sport there. And this will probably be the 50% of people that will not go to the gym later on. So making people not even understand, but like giving them the confidence and help them to be less intimidated to go to any gym, not even a CrossFit gym, but also the regular gym. We don't know where to start because we don't really have access to it. And with us telling ourselves that I'm not a sporty person, I'm not good at it, I probably will not go there and try to figure it out on my own because I'm so scared to, you know, other people think I don't know what I'm doing and I have no idea how that works. So that's probably limiting a lot of people from even thinking of going to the gym.
Wow, that's like such a great take. I haven't heard anyone in a long time talk about it with like a little bit of history, you know, how we were first introduced to sports. Like a lot of it is from our childhood and also in high school. And I heard it a lot that people say, oh, I'm not a sporty person. I hear this so often.
You know, I know hundreds of people who say that, you know, and it's exactly that. It's like either you were framed as a sporty person in school or you weren't, you know, and these belief patterns that we learned about ourselves, at the end of the day, belief patterns and beliefs are just things that we even told ourselves 1,000 times, so we believe them to be true, or they're since we're going back to childhood, there are probably things that other people told us about ourselves, you know? So you get a bad grade in sports, oh, okay, that means I'm not a sporty person. So, oh, that's a part that I will no longer get into because I continuously are being told that I'm not good at it. Of course, I'm not gonna get back into it and will feel bad about myself because I'm not good enough.
Makes total sense. I just feel like, wow, I can so much like even think about my own perspective with the topic and see myself in it. But I'm into sports now also, like very much, but back then I used to be really bad at gymnastics and I hated it, but we were also graded. But now it just makes me think about this idea of support also when you're not really good at something. I don't remember anyone supporting me with gymnastics back then. It was just this like really painful 2 hours a week.
It's the teacher telling you either good or bad. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, actually, aren't they there to help you get better at it? Right?
Yeah.
It's like the teacher is often like the judge, so you're good at better. No, you are there to teach me. That is your job.
Exactly.
To teach me how to get better at that. And
Yes.
that's something that I actually love about me coaching CrossFit group classes, but also in the personal training, because it often feels like we're reclaiming the spaces that I'm told I'm bad at. So it's like, hey, look, there's the rope as an example that I often hear, you know, in Germany, in schools, you're often like gone up the rope, and then if you couldn't do it, you were just bad at it. So getting the strength and the confidence back, and hey, I'm gonna show you ways on how to just succeed a little bit, you know, feel like, oh, I could actually do that. And then over time, not only building the physical strength, but also the confidence, and I have the tools. I know how to get there step by step. And it's not, okay, I can't do anything or I can't do everything. That's again the classic black-white thinking that we're often in. So either I'm doing everything at 150% or I'm not doing it at all. But what if there's steps in between that actually get me closer to the goal?
Yeah, so it means that we need to kind of also reframe the way we are thinking about doing sport, about getting into sport, but also the room and the spaces that, hey, you're coming into the space to learn something new. Actually, you're not coming here to be graded anymore, right? We're no longer in school. So now people can just, so this was this topic of I think the initial touching point, like how do people who are not doing functional training start? Are there any other barriers now, except from this mindset topic?
Two come to mind. First one is the lack of knowledge. There's too much information out there in the internet. If you just Google, you know, how do I start in the gym? There's a million options, and half of them are probably bullshit because somebody wants to just sell their program. Same for diet culture and diet programs. You know, what is the right nutrition, or what is good nutrition? If you Google that, you get like too many people selling their one product that will not work for everyone, and it's the same when it comes to training. So it's
because most likely they won't really tell you about their background and why this program has been created, and it's just okay.
So it's the lack of knowledge by the mass of knowledge out there, and at the end of the day, people probably need guidance, you know. So what can I, as the person that I am, with the life that I'm leading, with the body that I'm in, where can I start? And often people want to start like 8 steps ahead, because that's how the capitalist system that we live in, with, you know, you have to be productive and efficient, teaches us. And then they fail because the step that they chose is way too complex for them, or they're not strong enough. The body is not ready to do that. So, you know, they fail at the first try because they were told to pick a step too far ahead, and then they're like, oh, you see, I'm not good enough at it. Instead of starting at step 1 or step 2 and then make it to step 3. And at the same time, nobody's telling them what step 1 is, you know? So it's that weird complex thing of there's so much knowledge out there, at the same time I don't know what will work for me personally. And then the second thing is, of course, money. So it's like CrossFit as the best example is you have to have a 3-digit number of money available every month to just get access to that. So we're like, the sport per se is probably excluding like 70% of people. And it's the same with other gyms, right? If you have the cheaper gyms, of course there aren't trainers, maybe not even as qualified, but you don't have the trainers who have the time and the space to greet every person, to walk them through how they start, to give them their first training plan and tell them what to do. So they go there on their own, and then they're intimidated by everybody there feeling so much more advanced than them. So if you have the money for a cheaper gym, you feel intimidated because there's no guidance. And if you don't have the money for the more expensive gyms, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? It's yeah, it seems really difficult and very challenging, and also as I hear you talk, I'm realizing, wow, this is even more serious than I initially thought, because I've never been in general interested really specifically to go to CrossFit classes, but it was more about my fear for very intense classes and just see it as something really extreme, maybe in a certain way. Again, probably a lack of proper introduction. But that being said, 3 digits a month to access CrossFit is really insane. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, and we live in Berlin, in Germany, and so I think if people are in different side of the world, that can look also much different.
Slightly different, but I believe CrossFit is still on the higher end of training, because you regularly have like small groups of people with like 1, sometimes 2 coaches depending on the concept. So the good thing is you always have a trained person available that is only there so I'm not participating in the classes, I'm literally just there to make sure people are performing and executing movements properly, they're not hurting themselves. I'm there to correct, I'm there to support, I'm there to cheer, but at the same time that means that person has to be paid, and you have this huge gym space with a lot of equipment, so that leads to big gym space, higher rent, so that has to be compensated by the members' fees, and that is like, it's a vicious cycle because we keep excluding people, and yet I want exactly that the people who don't have access to things get access to things, because we probably can agree on that sport can have such a big impact on not only your how you feel physically, but also how you feel mentally and how you walk into a room. We can talk about longevity, how that has an impact on you in 20, 30, 50 years from now. And that is exactly why I decided to go self-employed, to just make sure that I reach more people. I still love CrossFit and functional training. So the thing is, to call it CrossFit, you technically have to like pay money because CrossFit is a franchise, and I have so much criticism about that. So technically I would have to call it functional training, but that often is not making the connection to CrossFit as the franchise that it is.
How do we get more people in?
Well, the thing is, until now, who gets to decide who gets in? And often it's money reasons behind it. So why do we want people with less financial resources get in? So I honestly believe there are ways, and we will, if you just really want it, there will be a way. First of all, I believe the first one to start with is, how about we're being less judgy? If I think of people who are not thin, if you have a certain body and you look a certain way, you're automatically stereotyped as not sporty or not fit. And I have so much to say about I want to be fit, or what fit even means, because that is similar to what is healthy food, but again, that's a different conversation. It's, what does fit even mean? Are you a gymnast, or if we think Olympia, you know, are you somebody who's doing is it Jocelyn? The Jocelyn throw, or am I an Olympic weightlifter? Am I doing rhythmic sports gymnastic? You know, if we just take 3 people doing this sport, they look totally different. And you could probably say they qualified for Olympia, so they're probably very fit in their sport, but they have very different bodies. So how my body look does not say anything about how fit I am. So being less judgy and making sure you can enter gym spaces without the fear of being judged and being told to take care of your nutrition first before getting even started would probably be the first one to tackle. And then again, money. I'm sure there would be ways of getting more people in. I work with a sliding scale concept to make sure people with less financial resources can get in there. And of course, I also need to pay my rent and I want to be able to get food to my table. But there are options. We've often talked about solidarity fund membership principle. So those who have an extra $20 a month, they can chip in, and if 5 people do that, another person can have a free membership, or another person gets their monthly membership for 20 euros less. But that's not how the system works, because we always talk about maximizing profits instead of giving more people access to things.
I think it sounds really great, this idea of having these solidarity tickets, but do you want to explain a bit more what the sliding scale is about and how does it work and how do you think it can really contribute and benefit people, maybe even on a long term?
Well, that is something that me as a one-person project, self-employed person decided to do. So yes, I have my set prices on my website. And at the same time, I'm aware of how personal training and nutrition coaching is a high-end service. So I'm aware that not everybody has that money ready to get the access and the guidance and the support they need. So I decided to work with a sliding scale pricing option for multiply marginalized people. So if you, for whatever reason, don't have the financial power, but you really feel like you need, or fitness and nutrition, working on fitness and nutrition, learning more about it would have a big impact and benefit on your life, you get it for a little less money. So you come to me, you tell me, hey, is the sliding scale pricing option something for me? We talk about it and we find a way to make it accessible for you.
Awesome. And do you feel like that, it sounds really amazing, but do you think it's been working out so far? Because I know maybe sometimes people can be a little bit shy to ask for support when they need help with something. I've heard of this sliding scale in various contexts around Berlin, so be it from like clubs to have some funds for supporting people who don't have the money to be able to come attend, let's say, queer events, or for also performers to be able to take a taxi back home. There's like a lot of ways, and I think thank you Berlin, because I've only experienced this in this city where there's a lot of solidarity ticket for a lot of events and a lot of things, just to not really leave anyone behind. But how does it look like, again, in this concept where you're talking about it's a somewhat of a high-end, you're saying that it's a high-end product, but at the same time, maybe it's also only high-end because we are taught to believe that sport is a luxury thing. But it's just like, and exclusive, but like sport is something that is also vital for our survival.
Everybody should be doing sports, you know. That's also why I don't believe in the elbow pushing or the bashing of other nutrition and personal trainers or people who do things in the field, because until every single person gets access to fitness and nutrition and sport, there aren't enough of us. So let's rather collaborate and work together. And, you know, and that probably brings me back to the question we're going full circle here. If people are shy about it, I not only honestly believe, but I learned over the years how important it is to work with someone that you feel comfortable with. So there are 1,000 people who, shame you. So to get into fitness, oh, you're too fat or you're too slow, so you need to start with fitness. So come get my program. That's not how I work at all. So
I'm really sick and tired of that, because it's only then this idea that fitness is either changing your body, that is just about going from fat to strong.
I'm trying to actively use thick and fat more often, because it's so stigmatized,
right?
So it's like, because fat per se, it's, there's fat in my olive oil, there's fat in the croissant I just ate. So fat per se is not, you have body fat, you have more body fat, you're heavier. There's nothing judgy about it. That's just a fact. But the society that we live in stigmatizes that.
Yes.
So it's a fine line, but I try to just use it more often to make people understand that there's nothing wrong with being fat or thick,
Yeah, and also the thing isn't about just changing the body to become slim or to have muscle. Like, sport is way more than that, and you've said it before, with longevity, with health, and so on. Like, it's a tool. I think it's a tool to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. What was the original question? Oh, if people are shy to ask for the sliding scale.
Yeah.
I find it very important that people work with a person they feel comfortable with. That is what I'm trying to create. I know the whole safe and safer space thing is also something that, just because you call it a safer space doesn't mean it is one just by claiming it as just like a performative action. But I'm trying to create a space where people can, and let's be honest, talking about your body and about sports and nutrition is something that is, and I was so naive when I started doing that 5 years ago, because I of course have my own fears and insecurities and topics and history of eating disorder tendencies from my teenage years, that I know how insecure I can feel in my body, but it was mind blown that it's not only me, so that also other people have that, and that we live in a world that tells us all that we aren't enough, and that some body parts are problem zones, So when I started that, I wasn't aware of I was very naive of how intimate and personal this nutrition coaching and personal training space can be. And when then people started working with me, I was quickly realizing how I was so humbled by people who trust me to work with them. So they trust me enough to talk about the things they don't talk to their partner about, they don't talk to their friends about, because they're being ashamed of thoughts and belief patterns and how their body looks, So also get into a space where you probably wear like tighter clothes, so you can see the body you have that you might feel insecure with better does something. So to come back to the point, because I can't keep rambling on about that, it's like, it is super important that you find a person that you trust, and I'm trying to be as non-judgmental as I can be, Everybody can come to me. I wouldn't want any person to feel like, oh, I'm not fit enough to work with Mara, or I'm not young enough to work with Mara, or I'm not rich enough to work with Mara. So by the fact that I phrase it like that often enough, I feel like people aren't shy. So the sliding scale principle also works quite well. So it's also like those people who
think of using the sliding scale or ask me to use the sliding scale are often the ones who like, hey, on a month where I earned more money, I will very glad you give you more or give you the full price. So it's also like a very genuine and respectful and what's the right word?
Could it be that they see the worth in the effort, that they see how much also it's helping them? You know, maybe that can be a great feeling, that you would feel like, okay, I really want to give back to this person because I've gotten so much from them.
Yeah, that's probably it. And that, you know, at the beginning, of course, it's not only are people too shy, it's also what if people, you know, abuse your sliding scale principle? And honestly, it's rather the people with more money who are being very, in German it's geizig. What's the greedy about it? Like, greedy. It's
greedy
like,
and stingy.
You know, they try to fight about every euro, you know, and it's never the people who could technically qualify for the sliding scale. It's usually the ones with more money who are not being as generous. So
and transparent, I guess.
Yeah, transparent about it.
Also seeing, because normally if they have the money, they can also actually start either get the support you need, like pay the normal fee, or actually contribute to the solidarity ticket funds, right?
Exactly. So it needs a certain awareness, and awareness is probably the opposite of privilege, right? So the more privileged you are, the less aware you are of any social justice issues or of any marginalization, and it often shows.
Yeah, it's also a very strong lack of integrity, I think. Okay, that was really insightful. Thank you so much for saying that, sharing that also. I have some more question, and I think it's going still in this direction of again thinking about what a more accessible functional training world can be. So if we were to talk about, let's say, free open spaces, having, you know, these free weights in the streets and so on, how does it also then support people into their overall just training journey, right? Because maybe until someone has maybe sufficient fund to go get certain specific services, it's also nice to be able to just use what's already there, right? Like use what you have. So be it just free body weight, how do you say that? Free body weight, like calisthenics?
Body weight. It's not a facility. That's probably where people start running, right? Because it's so easily accessible. I need a pair of shoes, and they don't even have to be like 200 euro running shoes. I can now go out with every pair of shoes and go out running. But at the same time, it probably comes back to what we talked about before, you know, who do you see at the calisthenics park? It's usually
men,
just men, topless men mostly, who already look pretty damn jacked and fit, you know, and
actually, I don't feel like I've seen some that to me would look like a beginner or something.
Oh, interesting.
I always see just really already jacked, like they always look like they're already super trained. Because I think sometimes I just want it out of curiosity, just to try at like the outdoor spaces, just to see how it is. Or you know, sometimes you're going on a nice little walk and you're stopping for a second and you're like, hey, how many pull-ups can I do? Yeah, but then I don't dare because there's just muscles everywhere, and you just
and they're either gonna judge you, or they're gonna laugh at you, or they're gonna mansplain you.
Yeah,
you know. So you probably don't. But that comes back to who has access to fitness in the first place, and that's something that I often notice with all the people that I train and work with, is that they're like, oh my God, I'm not good enough, without realizing that we're not starting at the same point, or they're not starting at the same point. You know, people you see in the gyms, people you see in the calisthenics parks are probably people who did a sport in a club situation, you know, when they were younger, probably people that have done sports for years and decades, where they laid a base. And if I then, again, the 50% that has been shamed of not being sporty enough, they will probably not start or not do a lot for the next years. And then in their 20s, in their 30s, they realize, oh my God, my back starts to hurt, my knees start to hurt, my lower back's a problem from all the sitting. So I'm being rationalized into, oh, I should start doing sports. And then I'm being confronted with the people who are like so much stronger, fitter, confident than me that I compare myself to them. Let's take social media and, the people you see there. It's, again, a lot of jacked, topless men often trying to explain me what to do. So
and you're like, honey, I went to Bundesliga, right?
Yeah.
You went to a very top level of competition before.
So you're trying to, and that's what humans do, right? We compare ourselves to other people without genuinely realizing that we start at totally different points. It's the classic take of everybody has the same 24 hours a day, which is just not true. And, everybody has the same options to become rich, which is also not true.
Yeah.
So that's not how it works. We don't start at the same point. And even though we're being told that that's the case, that's just such an ignorant take on everybody can get fit. And yes, we can improve, and you might get there eventually if you want to, whatever getting there means. But it's ignorant to say we all start at the same point, and we often compare ourselves to others from a very unrealistic point of view.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the same baseline, so
Not at all.
yeah, it's very important that we learn collectively to understand how do we take care of ourselves, how do we find a way to be also okay with this progress, right? Of like starting something no matter when, but just getting started and going with it as a journey, maybe not seeing this as an end, right? Because sometimes things can just take really long, but also, are we looking for reaching a stage or a state where it's like that's going to be enough? Most likely not, right? Fitness is also like a relationship, I feel. There's never, right? Like it's something that's probably going to be ongoing, because you want to also grow old and still be able to enjoy walking out in summer, to enjoy
Getting
ice
up the
cream.
stairs, getting out of your bed every
Also,
morning,
yeah.
bringing your groceries home,
Yeah.
Love that. It's not only like a relationship, it is the relationship to yourself, right? It's learning how to take care of yourself in a way, and that is so hard in the system we live in, because the system is not based on us taking good care of ourselves, but us being a part of the capitalist system. So we should be there to make somebody else rich instead of
just taking care of our well-being. So in conclusion, I think there are many different ways in which we can go about for creating this world that we're imagining, this world where functional training can be more accessible, but also sport in general. Moving forward, I hope with Sport Intersection, we can have the chance to interview, talk, chat, exchange with a lot of like-minded people who believe in social justice and who believe in a better world when it comes specifically to just liberation, but also just people, the planet, just taking care of oneself and moving forward as one and more united and more as a collective. So I'm really glad that I had to have the exchange with someone today, talking specifically about functional training. And thank you so much, Mara. I'm really happy and I'm really grateful for your time. Are there anything you would like to say as a takeaway, anything you want us to remember in general about just, working towards functional training becoming more accessible? And this doesn't have to be limited to coaches, it can also just be to regular people. Everyone who's just curious about functional training, how do we go about that? What are the last notes or the key points here?
Well, for athletes or regular people who wouldn't call themselves athletes, there is a way of getting you into training. And if until this point you felt you're not a sporty person, maybe we haven't found the sport for you yet, which also involves like trial and error, you know, trying new things, which can be intimidating. And that brings me to my fellow coaches. Let's learn how to be gentle, and let's learn how to be really inclusive. That will probably involve checking our privileges and listening to people and their perspectives, but I believe having these conversations and listen to how fitness spaces feel to other people will be a good start.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for creating the space, like I said.
I'm so grateful that you were in it, and I feel like I've also learned so much. So thank you, and thank you for watching. See you soon.